G'day guys. Time to talk about some historical shenanigans. More specifically, the Dutch Tulip Mania of the 1700s. Actually, you know what? It was in the 1600s. I was wrong. The reason I want to talk about the Dutch Tulip Mania is because it has many parallels to the current investment marketplace. And as always, if you like this video and like what I'm doing, make sure to hit that subscribe button, smash it up just like you'd smash those fucking tulips. Not that you know what I'm talking about yet. And let's see how we go. One of my favorite things in finance and financial history is the psychology behind investment bubbles and their inevitable demise. I love it because all throughout uni, you're taught all about the rational, efficient human and how we only ever make behavioral decisions based on rational considerations, which is obviously not true in literally everyone's lives. Bubbles are a really interesting example of that because the market's really only ruled by fear and greed. Everything else is just window dressing. So let's get into it. This whole thing basically is about the Dutch in the 17th century going mental over tulips and then absolutely f***ing themselves. To give you a bit of background, you're in Holland. It's about 1637, 1638, around that time. You're a Dutch guy. One of the things that the Dutch have had for a long time is a really advanced financial system. The Dutch were one of the first countries, in fact I think the first, to pioneer joint stock companies and share trading. The reason for that was they were a great seafaring empire that needed funding to be able to pay for trips to go with ships across to other countries to trade and come back. It was expensive and it took a long time. And people wanted to get in on the action, but they didn't want to be personally liable for the whole expenses of the adventure. So basically what they'd do is they'd make shares, they'd make stocks, they'd divvy it up according to your investment, and you get a portion of the rewards if and when the ship comes back. I digress. This isn't what the Dutch tulip crisis is about. This is just an interesting side note about the Dutch. The Dutch already have a fairly advanced financial system, which if anything made this bubble worse. In 1637-ish. Now, not only are joint stock corporations around, but there's recently been a plague, as there often were in the Middle Ages in these times. And because of this plague, like a third of the population or something's been killed off. So what that means is there were less people to work, so wages went up because people would pay more for their services. So now you got a whole bunch of people with a whole bunch more money. Around the same time, tulips got discovered in Turkey and brought across to the Netherlands. And tulips are like really delicate, they're fragile, they're kind of pointless, they're difficult to look after. They're basically like social media influencers. Rich people just want to get all up in the social media influencers, in the tulips. Whenever you got a tulip in your house, people are like, that guy's a baller, he's got that tulip. Rich people had all these tulips, right? Then the Dutch figured out how to grow tulips internally, so they didn't have to import the tulips all the way from Turkey. So now you got a tulip growing industry. And now they're crossbreeding all these tulips, so now there's all these weird like hybrid tulips that are even more rare and expensive. Everyone's trying to buy these tulips. So if you go over to someone's house and they got like, having a tulip is like the equivalent of having a Mercedes in your driveway. Everyone's mad about these tulips. So the value of these tulips started going up. Now, at the same time, it takes a lot of time to grow a tulip, right? They don't just have a big pile over there somewhere and you can just buy whatever you want. Tulips take like 6 months to grow and harvest. And farmers need to be able to fund this during the time. So they made what's called futures. Futures are basically where you agree on a contract or a price of something in the future, but you agree the price now. So for instance, if I want to buy a bunch of corn off a farmer in 6 months' time, me and the farmer go, I'm going to pay, I don't know, 150 bushels. So me and the farmer sit down and I go, I'm going to pay $3 a kilogram for your corn when the harvest comes in August. And he goes, you beauty. So now I've got what's called a futures contract that in August, I can show up and buy the corn for $3 a kilo. He gets the certainty that he knows how much he's going to get. I get the certainty that I know how much I have to pay. So when August comes around, it turns out corn's actually $50 a kilo. I've made a profit, but he's still locked in and he knows he's going to cover his expenses. So this happened with tulips, right? So then these tulip futures come up where I'm like, hey, tulip farmer guy, I want your crazy like blue and pink one. And he's like, all right, that'll be like $1,000. So we do the exchange. Now I've got this note which says that I'm entitled to this tulip for $1,000. Then someone else is like, oh, I want to pay $1,500 for that tulip. I just give him the contract and I've made $500 and I haven't done anything. This speculative market started. So people are signing futures deals with these farmers everywhere to get these tulips, then they're trading them in pubs. So for some reason everyone was trading, well I know why, because it's fun, but for some reason everyone's trading all of these futures in tulips in these pubs, and every time a transaction finishes successfully, you have to have a toast. Now you got random guys like a baker or like a craftsman or something, who could essentially have 20 contracts for tulips that he's holding and he's selling to someone for more. So people quit their day jobs and just traded tulips professionally on the hype of the increasing tulip market, which sounds interesting. I wonder what that is a parallel to now. Anyway, probably nothing. So, this tulip thing's getting momentum. The prices are jacking up, they're jacking up. People are mortgaging their houses to pay for tulip futures that they can flip to sell to other people. Some financial institutions are lending money against the value of the futures, which interestingly enough is a thing you can do now called geared investing and is part of the bubble. So anyway, you got all these people trading all these futures in all these fucking tulips, and the whole thing's going mental. People are paying like the equivalent of a house for a tulip future that they're going to sell. Now, you can probably see what's going to happen here at some point, right? These tulips are going to come due. The farmer's going to show up and be like, where's my, like, here's the tulip, can I have my money? Someone's got to buy all these, but there comes to a certain point where none of the people holding these tulip futures actually wanted the tulips. They were just trading them. So it's just like musical chairs. And then at one point it's going up and up and up and up. And then at one point, someone tried to auction off the tulip future for some insane amount of money and no one bought it. And that was the pop of the bubble. Then all of a sudden the entire market collapsed. It turns out I don't want to spend $500,000 on a tulip. It turns out I don't have $500,000 to spend on a tulip. The whole thing collapsed, people were ruined, the industry collapsed. Do you know why? There was no regulation, it was a highly speculative product, and there was no underlying asset underneath which had any intrinsic value. So maybe we should just think on that for a minute and think about some other things that are very similar to that people are trading at the moment for seemingly no reason. But my point is, people are fucking crazy. People, if they see an opportunity, people will buy and sell the shit out of it just to make money. Don't fall for a craze, just stay the course. So if you're the dude at the start who bought a tulip for like $1,000 and then sold it for $3,000, and then you just kept there and you dipped out, you're laughing. You didn't have any of that heady crazy shit. You're just cruising around living your life. It's the guys at the end who come in last who always get caught. So don't be the guys that buy into the hype. Don't buy tulips.